is up, Awake? I am Nancy, and I'm one of the new faces that gets to be on your screen. And so I am just so excited to be able to hang out with you, to tell you about Jesus, and to tell you, of course, some great stories, because that's what we're all here for at the beginning, right? Is to hear a good story. So I want to talk about how when I was in middle school and high school, I went to the summer camp, and it was a church camp, which may sound lame to you, but one of the best things about it is I got to hang out with these sets of friends that I only saw once a year. And so every time we got together, we had to make it worth it. We had to make it big. We had to make it bold. And so one of my friends' name is Haley, and she and I got to stay in this cabin that was near a lodge, a softball field, and this medium-sized horseshoe-shaped hill. And so I don't remember who came up with this idea, but we thought, you know what we should do? We should go sledding. But it's a summer camp in July. And so we will just get our twin mattresses from the cabin that's right over there. So we go into our cabin, we strip off all of the blankets and pull these mattresses out. And I'm surprised that we made it to the top of the hill with these giant twin mattresses before the counselor yells, "Stop!" And mind you, this is the counselor, the scary, strict one that's yelling at us to stop. And so what do? We're at church camp. I stop. My friend, her name is Haley. I envision her. She's like, I'm going after it. And she takes her mattress, chucks it down, and sleds down the entire hill, even though she had been told to stop. And I was like, this girl is bold. She confidently was like, no, we are here. I'm not going to lose this opportunity. I am going to sled down this hill. And I have no idea what the counselor did after us because I don't remember that part. I just remember how courageous she was in that spirit. And as an adult now, of course, counselor, I understand there's safety issues, things we should and shouldn't do. But what I remember so much about that story is how cool it was just to see my friend Haley take that next step. Because I think when we're finding ourselves around bold people, we're just I can't wait to see what they're gonna do next. Or, I wanna be a part of the story. Or sometimes I just wish their boldness would rub off on me. And so tonight we're talking about our core value that we walk in bold faith. And when I look at the Bible, I find few people who are bolder than Peter. Peter was one of Jesus' 12 disciples, one of his close guys, and I really think that Jesus picked Peter because of his tendency towards boldness. Peter's the guy that spoke first, acted first, and then thought second. Or maybe he thought third or fourth. I'm never really quite sure when Peter did his thinking. He just always acted first. And so because Peter's faith was always quick to act and quick to talk, we find times where his faith really grew in this because of his boldness, and sometimes where his faith actually shrunk because of his boldness. And so on your sheet, you should see kind of a T-chart where you have bold on one side and not bold on the other. And what we're gonna do is walk through some of the things that Peter did and say, was this bold or was this not bold for Jesus? So we're going to start with a story that hopefully you guys have heard before. It's one of the coolest miracles. It's a miracle we all tried to do as a kid. It's the one about walking on water. So what had happened is Jesus had just talked the whole day to a lot of people, and he's tired, and so he wants to go up on this hill to pray and be by himself. He sends his disciples away on a boat, and in their time of their traveling across the water, this huge storm comes. And while we in Iowa may not have been in a boat in a storm, this is what I envision. It's a terrible storm. It's in Iowa, the tornado sirens are going off. We're supposed to go downstairs to the basement. Every TV channel is the weatherman, saying, get under, get under anything, get inside, do all of that. And, you always have those crazy people outside watching, trying to chase it down. But, this is the type of storm that the disciples are in. And so it's scary. And they're trying to figure out what to do on the boat. And they look out and see a ghost. And lo and behold, it ends up being Jesus who's walking on water in the middle of the storm. And we find this story in Matthew, and it says here, "Don't be afraid," he said. Excuse me, Jesus, it is crazy. He says, "Take courage, I am here." Then Peter called out to him, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you, walking on the water." "Yes, come," Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on water toward Jesus. Well, nice job, Peter. That's so bold of you. Peter walks on water. And this goes on our bold side. He gets out of the boat during this intense storm. And I think what's even crazier is how he started it. He asked Jesus this bold request, "Jesus, if it's you, tell me to come out." And I really feel like Jesus kind of the other version is "I dare you, come on, join me." And Peter's "Well, you dared me, I'm gonna come." He's just this This idea to be bold is just in Peter. And so he gets out of the boat, walks on water, and then we get our next verse. Like, that's what happens in the Bible. It's a long book. And so the next verse says, but when he, that's Peter, saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. So Peter walks on water until he doesn't. And this goes on your not bold side. When Peter saw the wind, he saw the waves, he forgot how powerful Jesus was, and he lost his boldness. He lost his courage and began to sink. And so I just have to wonder, like, how many times have I been in that situation where, like, I had this awesome encounter with God, whether it's reading or praying or singing a song or, like, talking to my friend, like, it was awesome. And then, like, I look at my phone and this text shatters me, or I'm on TikTok or Instagram, and it's gone. That excitement I had is gone, and I just don't know how to take my next step. Peter was in this. Let's look at another one of Peter. Because it's been 2,000 years since he's been alive. He's dead. We can talk about him. So Peter was the first disciple to declare Jesus. Like, he was the first one to say, Jesus is the Son of the living God. So this is his bold moment. He declares Jesus. He's the first one of the whole group to say, like, yes, Jesus, you're the one who saves us, who blesses us, who redeems us. You're doing everything that we've been praying for and hoping for. And then we're in our Bible, it keeps going. We turn just a couple pages, and we find that Peter denies Jesus. And he doesn't just deny Jesus one time, he denies Jesus 3 times. And so we're gonna pick up this story again in Matthew chapters 26. Meanwhile, Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came over and said to him, "You were one of those with Jesus, the Galilean." But Peter denied it in front of everyone. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Later, out by the gate, another servant girl noticed him and said to those standing around, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again, Peter denied it, this time with an oath. "I don't even know the man," he said. A little later, some of the other bystanders came over to Peter and said, "You must be one of them. We can tell by your Galilean accent." Peter swore, "A curse on me if I'm lying. I don't know the man." Peter swore, and it might be others like, "I swear I don't know him," but sometimes like, but did he swear? Like, did he swear? I mean, like, you just take this where Peter had this high moment of, I know who Jesus is, so like, I've never known the man. And in your Tribes Night, you're gonna go through and look at this again, because I want you to take note of, like, where is Peter in the story? Where's he standing? And who is Peter actually talking to? Because I think you'll find it fascinating who Peter was not bold with, and where Peter was standing in that spot of not being bold. It is fascinating to me. I can't wait for you guys to look into that. So here's how it goes down. Let's set the scene. It's the night that Jesus dies. And so Jesus has been praying, because this is right before the crucifixion. There's a lot that's going on. And the disciples are actually sleeping, but that's another problem that we can talk about another time. So what happens is, as Jesus finishes praying, up the hill comes all these people to arrest Jesus. You have the religious leaders, as well as they probably brought about 100 Roman soldiers. And so they're basically like, "Jesus, is it you?" And Jesus is like, "I'm who as you say I am." And I just envision this moment that, like, Peter, like, comes out of the shadows, because Peter's been up there, and he's just like, "For Jesus!" And he has his sword, he slashes off somebody's ear. Like, this is what it says in John 18. "Then Simon Peter drew a sword and slashed off the right ear of Malchus, the high priest's slave." Peter cuts off an ear. This is actually gonna go on your not bold side. Even though this is bold, this is crazy, but maybe it's not bold in a good way. Maybe not bold for Jesus, because first off, Peter, like, remember how powerful Jesus is. He probably can take care of himself. And secondly, Peter, what are you gonna do? Cut off 100 ears? Slash, 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 slash. Like, Peter, let's think this one through. But he's not that guy. He's the bold guy. And so what I just wonder sometimes is, do we take these moments that we think we're being bold for Jesus, and it's harmful? It hurts somebody. Like, how many times have I said something or done something that I thought was bold, and I wanted to be bold, but it actually was mean, or it actually, like, tore somebody down. It was gossiping. And so I just wonder how many times that I've struggled with that, of being like, I thought this was for Jesus, except it was really just to make me look better and not Jesus look better. And so thankfully, in this story, I will let you know, Jesus does heal the guy's ear, which is just fascinating in of itself. And I pray for the people that I have hurt in my boldness, in my desire to be boldness, that's just gone wrong, that Jesus heals them too. And so we wonder then, like, how does Peter get to remedy this moment? How does he get to be bold after this? And we learn later in a book called Acts that Peter and his friend John actually get to go and heal somebody. They were walking up the stairs basically to a church and sees a crippled man and they heal him. And what happens then is the religious leaders get all up in arms about this. How dare they? And this time what I love about Peter is that he remembers how powerful Jesus is. And he doesn't deny who Jesus is, but he actually heals someone. And so that's what's going to go on our bold side. And this is what the people remember. This is what's accounted for. That in Acts 4:13, it says, the members of the council were amazed when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, for they could see that they were ordinary men with no special training in the scriptures. They also recognized them as men who had been with Jesus. So we too are just ordinary people. You are probably an ordinary person who isn't set up in knowing all of the scriptures, knowing all of the Bible. But what we can be known as is people who know Jesus. Last week we talked about that we worship with passion, and we can be passionate about knowing Jesus. And so I wonder then with tonight, that on our prayer walk, was there some way that God stirred you to be bold? Are you maybe walking through a storm and Jesus is asking you to keep walking and you have to trust in that? Did you pray for someone who is depressed and you're feeling that and you're asking for that call to trust Jesus in the storm and to not see the wind and the waves? Did you pray for someone who was sick or someone who was hurt physically or mentally, and God's saying, I'm so glad you prayed for them, but what if you told them? What if you saw them tomorrow at school and you're like, hey, I prayed for you? Or what if you prayed for them in real life, like after tonight? What if you texted a prayer? What if you sat by them at lunch? Like, what next bold move is God asking you to do? What if it is declaring who Jesus is? You prayed for somebody to know about Jesus, and your next bold move God's asking you to do is to go tell them, to invite them to Wake, invite them to church, tell them about who Jesus is. What if instead of tearing people down, you're being called to build them back up? What if cutting off someone is not what you're supposed to do, but your bold move is actually to fix the relationship? I think there are so many places that God is asking you to be bold in your walk of faith. And so I want you to talk to your people. What's your next bold step of faith?